So I've done one thing right, which is that I've unmuted myself before I started talking, which I think all of us who have been teaching over the last month or 2 months know. How many times have you said to your students, "You got to unmute. You're muted. You got to unmute." So so we've got off to a good start, everybody. I'm really glad you're here. Let's see. I think I can share my screen now, so that's great. And let's see here. So I'm going to do that. And then one of my first tips in terms of tricks and all sorts of other things that we'll talk about today is that if you don't have two computer monitors, you need to get two computer monitors because it has changed my world, not having to balance, when trying to share my screen with kids. And then I've got my little, my school uses Microsoft Teams. And so I've got to sort of balance all of that, or I've got to use my phone. It's a real pain, but having those two screens is really helpful. Okay, so let me ask you this, Ginny, are you seeing my presenters panel of the
Yes.
PowerPoint? You
Yes.
are?
Yes.
Okay.
You need to flip it if you.
So maybe I need to flip.
Yeah.
Let's see.
That's
How
it.
about now?
Yeah.
Yay. Okay.
Trust me,
All
I've
right.
done that one wrong more times than I'd like to tell you.
That's right. So see, everybody, we're still learning. The learning curve has been very, very high over the last couple months. I've been teaching since August. I've been teaching only online. In fact, we go back hybrid on Monday, and it looks like we've got about a third of our kids that are going to come into the building, and 2/3 of them are going to stay online. When we start talking about concurrent or whatever the word is that you want to talk about, but when I'm saying hybrid, what I mean is that I've got some students online, some students in person, and I've got to teach the same class to both of them at the same time. And so I'm going to be figuring that part out in the next, whatever, I don't know, 5 months. Because I think we'll be doing that probably for the remainder of the year, I guess. That's what people sort of are assuming. And so I would love to hear after I go through the things that have really helped me in this online environment. I hope to hear that you who have been teaching hybrid, I hope to hear you chime in with tips and your own tricks. I would also really appreciate it if you all would send questions through the chat, and Ginny and Martha will kind of moderate that. And I'm really hoping that I can finish talking sooner rather than later, and then we can spend a good chunk of this hour talking through things and really problem solving and kind of doing the group think thing. But I'm not going to go through all of this, but this is me. This is who you're looking at. I've taught out of Cambridge for 15 years, I think, about 15 years, and I've presented at workshops and done some webinars, and I just really love the Cambridge Latin course. I think it's amazing, and I'm not, after 15 or whatever years, I'm not bored with it. I still feel energized teaching with it, and I still find new things all the time to bring into my classroom to make it fresh for my students, but also make it fresh for me. When we started looking at teaching online, and now all of us taught at the end of the year, March, April, May, but I don't know about you, but for us, it was just don't hurt anybody, right? Do no harm. Well, this year it's a little bit different. Hopefully your school, your administration, your district has said, well, take care of those kids, be kind, be forgiving, be flexible, all of those things, but it counts, right? I mean, we've got a curriculum to execute, and there are standardized tests looming and all of these other considerations. We've got to press forward and help these kids learn. And so that's kind of my frame of context, is what have I learned since the beginning of this year, really to go full on here. But I thought it'd be helpful to give you just context. I teach 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and I teach for most of the classes are 50-minute class periods. They're 5 days a week. The only exception is that we have this weird quirk in our 8th grade where I only see the kids in 8th grade Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Monday is this kind of class and a half block of time, and then Friday is the regular 50 minutes. And so I teach. Oh, I'm getting an echo all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's me. Sorry.
Oh, okay. There we go. Okay. So in Latin 4 is when we start doing advanced reading. So I'm working in Cambridge in 8th and ninth grade. And then Latin 4 is kind of a pre-AP sort of year. We're reading, it's a great class for me because I can really choose whatever I want to do. And then AP is 11th grade, and then 12th grade is we call it a capstone class. So you can see what we're doing there. But that's my instructional context. And so coming into this year, these were the questions that I had to think about. I've spent 20 years, this is my 21st year teaching. I've spent 20 years figuring out how to maximize my talents as a teacher, minimize my not talents, and just really make my classroom a great place to be, and make Latin a great subject to learn, and really get my kids to learn that +1 every day, and to feel like when they're done with my class that they've learned a lot, they enjoyed it, and they can continue if they want to, or they have the tools to go off and do whatever. Well, how do I take that and apply it to online? And I think these are, I'm certain, are the questions that you all have been asking yourself. How do I engage my students? How do I assess my students formatively? Right, in my classroom I use whiteboards all the time. Kids had a whiteboard, they had a whiteboard marker. I can't do that online. I can cold call like a champion. In fact, I'll tell you, I'll promote the book in a second here, but the Teach Like a Champion book by Doug Lemoff is like my Bible for teaching. I can cold call with the best of them, and I can get 5 or 6 kids involved in questioning within like 60 seconds. You can't do that online. Vocabulary. I'm not going to give the same vocabulary quiz that I usually give when my kids could just, open the book in front of them in their bedroom or whatever and just write the answers in. Same thing with summative assessments. So how do I do all of this? My AP class. I mean, how do I maintain the rigor and the pace and the depth of knowledge when we're looking at each other through a computer? So these are all, I think, familiar questions. So in my classroom, I like to think on my best days that I maintained a high level of rigor, but a high level of comfort with my students, that I felt like my classroom's a positive place to be, that I'm a positive person. I'm always happy to hear when my students say that, oh, Mr. Yagi, you're always smiling, or you're always ready with a joke, or, you're so positive. And because I work at that, I really do. And I'm an extrovert. So how does that translate to online? I also try to make sure that in that 50-minute class that I'm not doing any one thing for a really long period of time, because we all get bored with it. I do, my students do. So how do I promote that student engagement when we are looking at each other through a desktop camera? So there's a couple answers I've come up with, and one of them, the first one, is show them your face, show them little clips of you, and I've embedded this YouTube video. We're on fall break right now, my school is, and so I sent this to them on Friday because we spent that week before fall break at the school for part of the week, prepping for the kids to come back for hybrid learning starting this Monday. So I'm not going to play this whole thing. It's just a minute, but I'll just give you a little bit. And I try to send these little clips to my students on a pretty regular basis. So hopefully you'll both see the video and then hear it as well. Okay, Ginny, are we hearing that?
No, and I think it's because your Zoom is taking over your computer.
Okay. Let's see. I'm not sure how I could do that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
To do it for some reason, but let me see if I have it back here. Go ahead, keep talking. Let me see if I can find one thing.
Let's see. Looking for like audio settings and whatnot. Okay, well, anyway, this is just me talking to them and saying, hey, we've been working hard at the school. We're really excited for you guys to come back. I miss your face, and here's my face. And so we're just making these connections. So I just try to give them these little glimpses. When the AP students, were taking their AP test, I sent each of them, I had 15 take the test, and or 15 in the class last year. And so I sent each of them like a 30-second video cheering them on and saying, you got this, and whatever. And the kids really like that. So, okay. So another one is and I'm really big in these videos, and I'll tell you that a name that you might want to write down and look on YouTube for, and his channel is Michael Wesch, and his last name is, I think it's Wesch, and he's a college instructor, online teacher, and he has a lot of really good tips. And one of the first tips that I got from him as I was investigating, and this was last year, as we were all trying to figure out what the heck we were going to do online, is
okay. I can get if I can get to YouTube and play them there, Patrick. So it might be if do you is it under your Yagi Latin?
well, yeah, but they're kind of hidden. At least these are. So let's not worry about it. They'll get the
Okay.
general gist. I think maybe just by looking at them, but nonetheless, I've been doing short little video tutorials for almost everything, because when I'm giving direct instruction to my students in class, I can check in with them all the time, whether it's cold calling or just sort of, making sure they're paying attention or whatever. Well, the students in front of the computer, if I'm talking and I'm talking for more than 30 seconds or a minute, they're going to tune out because they've got every reason in the world to tune out. So instead of directly instructing them in live in real time, I usually just give them a video tutorial, and say, here's the video tutorial, watch this, and then we're going to take this formative assessment to make sure that you've understood what you've learned. And the benefit of the video tutorials, whether it's this one, like the Hick in LA here, or the other one that I've got here in my next slide. Let's see here. Let's see, is a tutorial after they've taken a formative assessment that they didn't do very well on, so I had to do some reteaching. The benefit is that they've got control over it, right? They don't have to, they can watch on their own terms. They can push play when they want to, and they can rewind if they need to hear something again. Or in this instance where we've got, it was a quiz, and there were 3 different types of, actually I think this was 2 quizzes, and there were 3 different types of questions on the 2 quizzes that we looked at. Well, I mean, if they only had a problem with one of the types, so this second one, I don't know if you can see it on my screen, but the second one about the passive voice, maybe that was the only one that they knew that they had trouble with, so they can fast forward to that one. But it gives them control, and they can pause it if they need to use the restroom, or if they need to sneeze, or something, but they've got control over it, and the ability to go back and restart it has been really nice. It's also, thanks to YouTube, I can go back and look at the analytics and get a sense of, did my students actually watch this? Because I can see time spent, and I can see number of views and stuff like that. So that's kind of nice. So I've been a really big fan of making these short little video clips. And by the way, there's tons of all of these little tools out there. The video capturing software, the screen capturing software that I've settled on, that I really, really like, and I think it's really easy to use, is called Screencastify. And if you use the browser Chrome, it's just a little add-on, and it's just a button that is put on the browser bar. And I found that it's extremely easy to use, and if you have a YouTube channel, it seamlessly blends with that. And so all of these videos that you see me in, they're using Screencastify. For the same reason that I talked about before, I always try to put a little me in the corner so they can see me, because I just think that person to person, you seeing my face and me seeing your face in class, I think that's really important. So I think using video tutorials, giving the kids the power, giving the kids control to play those videos, I think is really important. The other kind of video that I'll give them, and this is something that I think we forget about as teachers, is that, remember, everything is new to us, but it's also new to our students. So be very deliberate about telling your kids what's going to happen. So this was not even our first test, I don't think. I think it was our second one, but I recorded a video telling them, look, we're going to have a test on Friday, and the test is going to be on my learning management system that's called Buzz. And here's Buzz. You can see it on the screen here that I've got it. And I tell them, look, this is how you're going to access it. This is what it's going to look like. And this is how you study for it. Now, this is no different. It shouldn't be any different than what they would normally do to study, but it's a new context and maybe they don't realize that. So they need it explained to them. So just being very deliberate about all of the intricacies and the logistics of your class, I think is super helpful. And if you tape it, they can watch it again if they need to. Um, the other thing about this, and we'll talk about this too, but if I played this and you heard me, what you would hear me talk about is, now look everybody, this is open note, but that's not a license just to not prepare. You know, if you don't prepare, you're still not going to do well. And again, we'll talk about summative assessments and why that is in a second, but I was very deliberate in talking about the
The first
elephant
time
in
I
the.
was asked to teach online, I wasn't very excited. I'm super excited. I think.
Ooh, okay, there we go. So so I had to talk about the elephant in the room, which is that it's open note, open book, but you still need to do your part of it, you know, to get to learn that information. So those videos help. So formatively assessing. So like I said, in my classroom, Teach Like a Champion is my Bible. Cold calling is at the foundation of what I do. I am active. You know, if we're doing it right, I'm sweating a little bit at the end of class because I am boom, 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 and I'm challenging my students and I'm getting everybody involved. And when I'm cold calling and in that groove, you know, I can get 5 or 6 kids involved in a question and answer session in 60 seconds. And online, you can't do that, right? Online, you try to cold call and a kid doesn't unmute, right? He forgets to unmute. Oh, okay, Patrick, you have to unmute. Oh, okay, all right, sorry, all right. Or a kid purposely doesn't unmute, right? Or a kid's microphone doesn't work, and so he or she's got to use the chat, you know, and it grinds to a halt when you've got 30 kids in a class and you're doing 1 student per minute. It's awful, and it doesn't work. I can't do whiteboards, and certainly if there's an online answer to whiteboards, and there are, I can't do them as fast, right? You can't do that really quick. Okay, right, you got 30 seconds, show me, let me see everybody's, okay, good, and that kind of thing. So I had to come up with ways to formatively assess my students in this online environment. And if you've been paying attention to our Cambridge Facebook group, you know that one of the primary ways is Pear Deck, and I've been using Edpuzzle as well. If you're not familiar with these, the simplest way, I think, the easiest way I think I've described it to myself is for Pear Deck, you take a PowerPoint, and Pear Deck allows you to put questions, embed questions on that PowerPoint. So rather than just playing the PowerPoint for your students and going, yep, 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 okay, got it, yep, 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 you can ask a question and they have to respond to those questions, and they can be multiple choice or free response, or they can even draw. There's some other things. And Edpuzzle is exactly the same thing, but for videos. Of all of the tech tools that I use or I've investigated or have been, you know, percolating in all of these discussions, I have to say Edpuzzle was definitely the easiest plug and play one. And so I my one of my tips here for you all is to not get bogged down in every tech tool that comes your way. So for instance, like I'm really big with Pear Deck, and I hear people talk, well, Nearpod, Nearpod, Nearpod. Apparently it's the same kind of thing as Pear Deck. I don't want anything to do with Nearpod. Pear Deck works. It works for my needs. I don't need the next new flashy thing, or of course Nearpod's kind of an old thing, but I found what works. And maybe if I have time, which I don't, but if I have time, maybe I'll find that one extra thing that works. But I don't want anybody to feel like you have to use 7 different programs and all of that. Just find the one that works, and then maybe when you're comfortable and you're ready, find the next thing that works. But you don't have to just go crazy with all of these different things. So Pear Deck and Edpuzzle work for me. And if it works for you, fantastic. If you feel overwhelmed by trying it, that's fine too. But I'll tell you, Edpuzzle, definitely the easiest plug and play. Like I was literally using it the way it was intended to be used within like 5 minutes of accessing the site for the first time. So really easy. So let me show you Pear Deck in the way that I use it. So what you're looking at is a PowerPoint. It's just a screen grab of a couple PowerPoint slides. So this is Masada 1. This is in stage 29, and so my first PowerPoint slide that I would create, just like any other PowerPoint slide, would be, here's the title, and then my first slide is, okay, type your first and last name in the text box and give me. And I always ask them like a getting to know you question, just because it's fun. You can do through Pear Deck, you can have the kids create accounts. And so then they would log into their account and it would keep track of everything. For a lot of complications, and I'm sure that's nothing new to you guys, for a lot of complications with Microsoft Teams and everything, it's really hard to do that with students. So I just have them log in as anonymous users, and Pear Deck always assigns an anonymous animal to them, which is really fun. There's like a meerkat and, you know, lion and all sorts of stuff. So this is how I know who they are, is that they type their first and last name in the box. And so Pear Deck, the only thing that Pear Deck does is that you upload the PowerPoint, you turn on Pear Deck, this is kind of add-on, and you just click add text box, add text response box or something like that. And so they type their name in the slide. Okay. Another one is, and this is a selection from Masada, the same one, this Masada story. And what I've done is I've just underlined these identifying features for these members of this family, and I've color coded them. And then one of the Pear Deck slides is you can drag things. So I've created these 4 color coded dots that correspond to the lines. And I've said, okay, just drag, you know, for the red dot, you want to drag to the picture that describes or that mimics the Annus Septuaginta Annorum. And then the blue one to the Matrona Triginta Annus, and then the green one to one of the 4 Libri. Notice I put a little note down here. And then the yellow one, the gold one, to Simon. And so this is my way of checking that they get these things, they understand these things, and it's visual and it's nice and it's easy for the kids to do, so it's a good check. So you on Pear Deck, you can either do it teacher-led, where it's my vehicle for teaching the lesson, just like in class. I would have the PowerPoint broadcast up on the board, and I would be teaching and advancing through the slides, and I might be asking the kids questions with whiteboards, or, you know, maybe we're filling out a worksheet together. But here I might be teaching online, and I'm fast forwarding, I'm advancing the slides, and they're answering. And so we can kind of go through the slides together. To be honest, most of the time I do the student-led version. So it's kind of the asynchronous version, where you just give them this, you say, hey, click on this link and go to town. And the best part about that is it frees me, because I'm not teaching, they're doing, and I'm in the background watching. So if I'm in the classroom, it would be the same as if I said, okay, everybody, read Masada, complete these questions, and then I'm wandering around my classroom, looking over students' shoulders at their answers and individually helping students. I love this part of Pear Deck where it's student-led. And so the nice thing is that as they're doing it, and literally in the moment, like with this drag slide, you can watch them drag the dots to the part of the picture, and it's fantastic. And it's very Big Brother, because I can get in there and I can go like, so you can see one of my students has dragged the yellow Simon dot to one of the little kids. It looks like everybody else did it right, but that one kid missed the Simon part. So I can go in there and I can leave feedback. So this is what it looks like when all of the questions and all the answers are layered on top of each other. But you can also see this view where it's every individual student. Now, the student that missed the Simon part is over here in the middle row on the very left-hand side. And it looks like he was assigned, or she was assigned, the raven as her animal, or his animal. I think it was a he. I think I know who this is. Well, this little feedback bubble is dark because I've left him feedback, and I've done it in the moment. And when I hit enter on that comment, it pops up for him. And my comment was, your Simon isn't right. And so he can go and change it, and he changed it. And it's funny because you can watch the dot go brrr. It's fantastic. So for me, it's the best teaching, because it's shrinking a class of 25 down to one person, and you can interact with that one person. And the functionality of this page is such that you can bounce around really, really quickly. So, so here we go. Here's your Simon isn't right. So hopefully he went and changed his Simon dot, took another look at it. So here's another example. Same thing, a little bit later on in Masada. And if you know stage 29, you know that the point of stage 29 grammatically is passive voice. So I've done a series of questions from that Masada where I focused on verbs of the passive voice. Now, the other part of this is that this is early on in the stage. I haven't taught them passive voice yet. I haven't even mentioned the word passive yet, I don't think. So they're just accessing it for the first time. They're just experiencing it for the first time. So my job is to lead them to get it intrinsically, right? To point them in the right direction, just to see if they can wrestle with it and figure it out. So what I've done is I've underlined the sentence and I said, okay, translate it. And what I've also done is you can see there's this, it says audio included. And I've written, hey, you need help? Listen to the audio tip. And that audio tip is basically me saying, okay, that opprimerus, that ris, that means you, it matches with the two. And this is a passive voice verb. So it's you are blanked. So I've basically given them the answer, but it feels like a cheat. You know, it makes them feel like, oh man, I really got a leg up here. Like he really like did me a solid and helped me out. And so now, because this one's a text box, it shows me all of their text answers. And you can see, you know, the answer is cor tu lacrimis opprimerus. You know, why are you overwhelmed or oppressed or, you know, whatever, by tears, with tears? So you can see tree frog, got it right. Squid, why are you overwhelmed with this? At first, Squid did not get it right, but you see that comment box has been darkened, and that's because I sent him or her a comment and said, no, take another look at it. And here is my comment for Squid. This was his or her's first go at it. Why are you resisting crying? And here, instead of just saying try again, I've actually just told Squid the answer. You know, I've just said, look, this is what it is. And they've gone back and changed their answer at my direction. But again, I'm doing that because they're accessing it for the first time. I don't expect that they know it. I'm just trying to lead them in the right direction there. And so I've done that. So I've given them a chance to wrestle with it, and they wrestled wrong. So I pointed them in the right direction and we move on. Here, this is the opposite. So I also, you guys know that have been teaching for Unit 3, I think from about stage 23, 24, all the way to 28, it's subjunctive city. It's every subjunctive, it's all the subjunctives. It's imperfect tense, it's pluperfect tense, it's purpose, result, indirect command, all of them. So this was a review item. So let's identify some subjunctive clauses. Now here you can see with tantus, right? This is a result clause. And here are the results of my students' answers. So this was a multiple choice test or question. You can see most of them got it right. Snake did not, purpose. And tree frog, good old tree frog, got it wrong too. So you can see I put the comments in there. So here's the comment for tree frog. Tree frog first put purpose. And instead of, I just wrote try again, because again, this is a review item. They have the tools, they have the knowledge. I know they can do this. He or she just missed it the first time. So let's go back, right? Notice, unfortunately for tree frog, their new answer was indirect command. Remember they put purpose first and then I commented? Well, they guessed wrong again. So now I know I gotta spend some time with the tree frog and help that tree frog out with some subjunctive clauses. So again, shrinking this class from 25 or whatever it is down to one person is so valuable. And this is what in my classroom, this is what whiteboards do. This is what cold calling does. So this is my online fix for that. The other thing you can do with Pear Deck is you can download a spreadsheet of all their results. And this is super, super helpful, especially what I'll do so that I know who knows what and who's kind of having some trouble. For me visually, if they get an answer wrong, I'll highlight it in gold or in yellow or something. And so visually I can see like who has more yellow highlights and who needs more help, right? And I might differentiate a lesson based on that. The only thing I'll say about the spreadsheet is notice that see D, E, F, and G, it just has like these numbers. These were the drag ones. So you can't represent that on a spreadsheet, right? Same thing with the drawing slide. I asked them to circle something, and so it just says drawing. So there's no way to represent that on the spreadsheet. So the efficacy of the spreadsheet is limited by the kinds of questions that you ask. But if you know that going ahead, make them all multiple choice or make them all free response, and you've got a really good tool at your disposal. The other thing this tells me is that poor Lemur logged in, but then didn't do anything. So that would cause me concern, except for I actually know that Lemur is tree frog, that Hagen logged in as Lemur and then he left and then he came back and now he's a tree frog. So I know about that.
Patrick, you have a question from Ann McLean in the
Yeah.
chat. So are they not reading the whole passage first, basically, or are they just reading this one section?
Yeah, so for this one, this was their first look at Masada. And there's all sorts of different ways. Of course, we have the 62 different ways to approach a story. But for this one, right? I mean, but for this one, we didn't do any pre-reading first. I just break it up into chunks as you're seeing, and I mean, it depends on the chunk. It depends on what my motivation is for the questions, and what I want them to get out of it. But usually it's a couple slides per question. This Pear Deck actually took them pretty much the entire class period. So I broke my rule about, trying to do 2 or 3 different things, 15-minute segments. This one actually took quite a long time, but I also feel like I varied it enough with the audio stuff and the drawing stuff and the dragging stuff that the kids, I didn't hear a lot of kind of grumbling from the kids. They were okay with it, and they like Pear Deck pretty well.
So
Um,
I realize that this is a virtual environment, but I guess to add to Ann's question, would you ever say to them then, okay, now in the web book, read the whole passage again, or as a second read, or would you have
oh,
them?
sure.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And then of course, you want to look at how they did, right? I mean, I feel like I've set them up. I feel like I've set myself up for success in terms of evaluating their understanding of the story. So, if they're telling me that they understand the story, then on we go, right? We get the story. I actually had showed them a YouTube little 10-minute video. There's a series called Drive Through History, and the guy talks about the Arch of Titus. So they know about Masada, they know about that already, and so that was a little bit of a pre-reading kind of activity for them, just kind of immersing them in the historical context of the story. But yeah, I mean, if they're showing me that they get it, then we'll go on to Masada too. If they're showing me that they're not getting it, and I think actually the case with this one is that there was a chunk right at the end of the story that they clearly didn't understand. So we went over that. We read that, and I gave them another chance for them to show me that they understood that. So sure, but you've got to look at what the kids are showing you, and if they get it, great, let's go. And if not, we'll spend some more time on it. So yeah, great question. Thank you. And please, Jenny or Martha, keep interrupting me if I'm going too fast.
All right.
So in terms of Edpuzzle, gosh, let's see if I can try this. Edpuzzle, basically, again, it's videos, and you're putting questions into those videos. And the questions can be free response or multiple choice, or you can just put a little comment. You can even do like voiceover stuff, although I've never done that. Edpuzzle is really, really easy to grade. And I was going to show you these just little clips from 3 different Edpuzzles. Let me see if this works. My idea is that I click on it and it works. But this is what Edpuzzle looks like. I'm assuming you guys can see my screen here. And this is me doing pretty much what I would be doing. Great. Okay. This is pretty much what I'd be doing in my normal class, which is we would have the model sentences. I would broadcast them up on the board, and we would be going through them, and I would be trying to lead them gently in the direction of those grammatical topics and the vocabulary that they need to master. So for here, again, it's passive voice. I don't know if we'll hear the audio,
Well,
but
someone suggested that, good, let's see if it works, but otherwise click on more. You may be able to optimize for presentation mode.
click on more. Where are you seeing more? On
What?
Zoom or?
On Zoom, yeah.
Mm,
No, okay.
I don't know. Oh, wait, here we go. Hold on. Hide video panel, floating, leave meeting, screen share.
We can see your mouse going, but we can't see what you see. Yeah.
That's okay. All right. Well, anyway, so you can see the visual here is that I've started going through this, and you can see that at some point, so I've just kind of narrated this picture. And just as a background knowledge thing, I said, hey, can you name any of the 7 hills? You can set it so the kids cannot skip the question, although I'm skipping it and going on. And so then I'm naming off the hills now. And you can see the thing is coming up to a new question here. And so it stops and says, okay, I just named 7 hills. Which one is shown in the picture. Now that should be a pretty easy question, but it's engaging the students and it's making them pay attention. If they need to, they can rewatch or listen to the clip, but they're going to answer here. And so you can see this huge collection of questions here. And this is because we're really getting into the meat of it. And I'm going to start asking about passive voice stuff. So here it's basically pointing them to sub capitolio. So understanding what sub means. And then this next one will point them, I think, to the passive voice here. Let's see here. Okay, so this was pointing them to kiwium, which is a tough, I think everybody realizes that third declension genitive plural ending is a little tough one. So this is what Edpuzzle is, and it's super easy to use. And in fact, if you go on there and you type into this search box, stage 29 model sentences, you probably will find this exact thing and you can use it. You can copy it into your account and you don't even have to, like, all the questions will be there and you can decide my questions are great, or you can decide that they're terrible and do your own. It's really, really super, super easy. So that would be a lesson that I would really kind of mimic for what would happen in my classroom. The Dies Festus was an example of those wonderful Cambridge reenactment videos of some of the stories, and a lot of them are on Edpuzzle already, and you can copy them and then add your questions and edit as you want. So I've just done that. And then this one is an example, and again, I'll click on it, and just so you can see the visual here, it's just the story, and I'm reading the story. That's it. And if you remember from stage 19, this story, Aristo, says a lot of the things that the model sentences have already said. So this story is more of a consolidation than most other stories. So you can see that I haven't asked a ton of questions here, but I've just asked basically some comprehension questions. So it's me reading the story. They can see me here. I'm teaching at them and teaching to them. And the questions pop up. And so here's, okay, poor Aristo, why is he miserimus, according to the first line? Or let's see here, in what way does Aristo want to follow in his father's footsteps? So just these comprehension questions. So I could probably do this in a pair deck, but for variety's sake, I decided to do it in a puzzle. And again, the grading of it is super easy. So let me show you this, because when you click on one of those videos, your grade book within the program, the greatest thing it does is it doesn't restrict you to just going to, like, I got my boy Connor here. I can click on Connor and I can grade just his Edpuzzle questions, but what it does is it groups every answer for one question at a time. So you could just, it's this one question. These Juvenes have no idea what's coming. What did they do wrong, at least according to Galatea? And so he's said Greek Galatea. That's not really right. So I would click the X. And then here it says they wanted to stand where Galatea was standing. So I would click that check mark. Or maybe they got it half right. So I could put like 50 out of 100. I could also leave a comment for him. The thing you have to remember with Edpuzzle, you people that have used Edpuzzle before, you know that this is true probably. Once you comment, you cannot delete the comment. So be careful with your comments because you can't go back. Just be very careful. I even tweeted at them and they were like, yeah, sorry. You can't do anything about it. So that's another big reason, or another big tool that I use here to formatively assess my students. And for a pair deck and for Edpuzzle, I might give it for participation, or if I have time, I might grade it for accuracy. But the fact that I can give them feedback in real time on both of those programs, actually in real time, and make a connection with them and say, hey, you almost got this right. Think about this thing, and give them some guidance, give them some tutoring, and have them give them the opportunity to go back and fix their mistakes. Makes this a really valid formative assessment for me to use as a grade. The other part of this is assessing mastery in a summative kind of way. So we've talked about Pear Deck and Edpuzzle, but I also use my online quizzes, and I use them pretty much on a daily basis. Now I use a learning management system, an LMS called Buzz, and Buzz is fantastic. And unfortunately, they used to be small enough that they would sell to individual teachers. They don't do that anymore. Your district has to adopt it. But if you have a learning management system that can do these things, you're lucky. This is a great system where I can create a quiz and I can create an item bank of 60 questions, but I can set the quiz to only pull 10 questions from that item bank. So the benefit to my students is that they can do 3-4 different attempts, but they'll get a different quiz every time, and I can set it so that their highest score counts. So remember, I'm not holding them to task in a way that's like the end of the stage and they should have completely mastered this and they should have studied. I'm trying to engage them with the material, get them to learn from their mistakes in a daily formative kind of way. So when they have that safety net, they feel really good about doing it. If they get a 90, I want them to try for the 100, but I want them to know that if they get an 80 the next time, that 90 is still going to stay there. The other nice thing is I can use this for review because I can unlock all of these quizzes and they have, hundreds of questions to practice from. It also gives me a lot of data to inform my instructions. So I can look at most missed items, or I can see that they just all did really, really well and we've mastered it and we can move on, or that they didn't and we can go back and I can do some reteaching. And I can program all the questions in with feedback as well. So when they get a question wrong, that feedback pops up there and says, no, it's this or it's that. And they can take it again and learn from their mistake and show their mastery. So you can do all of that pretty much with some of those things with Pear Deck and with Edpuzzle. So this is why I keep talking about those programs, because they're so fantastic in that way. Now, in my classroom, I used to give a 50 question, almost completely multiple choice summative assessment. It was 50 questions. I would give a couple free response translations kind of at the end of it too. So maybe 55 questions total. And about 15 questions were derived from those wonderful, wonderful stories that are on the fifth edition assessments that are on Elevate. And so I would use those. I would give them the story. They'd answer about 15 questions. And then the remaining 35 were grammar, culture, vocabulary, syntax, everything. Well, I online, and this is a huge, huge issue, everybody, right? How do we assess online? So the first thing very quickly is I realized you can't ask I can't ask my kids, I can't say, okay, don't look at your notes, don't look at your book, because it's unenforceable. And I'm not going to do the thing that I know some of the districts mandate, which is all the kids have to have their cameras on and you stare at the kids while they're taking the test. First of all, I think it's creepy. I don't like it. I feel weird. I tried it once with the Medusa mythology exam last year, and I never am doing it again. And the second thing is they're going to find ways around that. They're not going to have the answers plastered on their face. And unless you have like a camera, looking at their whole, it's just, to me, it's pointless. So anyway, so I told them early on, look, it's open book. And all my students were like, oh my gosh. But you can create a test that limits and kind of mitigates that factor and really does make sure that you're assessing their knowledge, not their Google ability, right? So the tests that I've created, they're still 50 minutes. They're about 30 to 40 questions. And 2/3 of it, not almost all, but 2/3 is multiple choice. And most of that exam is based on that fifth edition story from Elevate, that site passage that they've never seen before, but that practices those same concepts that we've been practicing. And 1/3 of it is free response, and I give them synthesizing questions and I give them analysis questions. It is really hard for them, if they don't know what they're doing, to Google their way to an A. It just is. And I know that because their scores basically reflect what I know their scores were in when we were in person. So I feel really comfortable with those parameters of that, giving more free response. And also I do it through that Buzz LMS. And so every single student is getting a different test. That's the part that I can control. And I tell them, look, it's open. You can use your notes. You can use your book. You can Google if you want to. You're not going to do very well, but if you want to, go for it. But you cannot use each other. And I repeat that over and over and over again. Now, again, I don't have a way to police that, but I've set them up for success because they're all going to get a different test and they don't have time because that test will shut off at 50 minutes. And so they don't have time to call up their buddy on the phone or get them on, I don't know, get them on what's the I don't know, whatever these crazy kids are using these days to communicate, you know, uh, they don't have time to do that. And maybe they might benefit one question or something, but it doesn't, I still know whether they've mastered the material or not. And that's the point.
Oh my God,
The other,
there's a list of things here. Snapchat, Discord.
yeah, Discord was the one I was thinking of. They love Discord. They're all about Discord. Now,
And
here's
it's,
the other thing. Here's the other thing, everybody. The bottom of the slide is so important. My mentality is by the time they get to the summative test, I should pretty much already know to what degree they've mastered it. My mentality is assessing them every single day using Pear Deck, using Edpuzzle, using all of those tools. My mentality is the daily assessment. The summative should just be the icing on the cake, you know, the cherry on top. I don't tell them this. I don't explain that sort of mentality difference to them, but that summative test, it's one more thing, you know, it's an end cap. I still feel really good about the efficacy of that, but my focus is on challenging them every single day and assessing them every single day. And I think that's a really important piece of this assessment puzzle is getting them to show you every minute, every class, every day, how much they know and how much they're learning, and have they learned that plus one every day.
okay,
Patrick,
I have another question. Yeah, Mark.
what about the students who have an IEP, for example? How do you adapt if the test shuts off at after 50 minutes?
Yeah. Well, I do have, yeah, I've got students that need extra time, and that's you know, certainly something that a situation that we all have here in our classes, and I have the ability to, basically what I do is I create I create a second copy of the test, and I assign that test with not 50 minutes but 75 minutes, a 75-minute timer, and I just assign that test to those kids. The other thing, and again, I don't really like outwardly talk about this with the students, but I also set my parameters so that they can actually turn it in a little bit late after the 50 minutes. The timer will still go down to 50, it just won't shut off, and it'll go, I think what it does to the students is it'll start counting up and it turns red, and so they'll know that. But with the kids with the time and a half IEP, I just create another version of the test and put a 75-minute timer on it, you know.
Mhm.
So yeah, all sorts of different ways. I love Buzz. I just love it, and I wish everybody used it. I think it's just Agilix Buzz is just a fantastic program. Now the other assessment piece is vocabulary. I used to do, everybody, a one vocabulary quiz. It's right here in the bottom left. I put the English word, they gave me the Latin forms, it was fill in the blank, it was old school, and it worked. They knew their vocabulary. I can't do that anymore. So my pivot has been GimKit. And instead of giving them one assessment, one summative assessment, I have them do a GimKit pretty much every single day. And I put all the words from every story. So here's like stage 26, in principiis, ad ventus, the vocab checklist. And I put every single word in there because I want them to get that repetition. I do limit it to 50. So, you know, I might take out et, because I figure we all know et, right? I make it Latin to English. GimKit is like a game thing. It's like Kahoot, if you've played Kahoot before. And basically the kids earn money every time they answer a question, and they're trying to get to a goal. And you can do this in class, just like GimKit, where everybody's all kind of playing together, but they have an assignment feature, and this is what I use, where it's just the student and the program, and they're trying to get to $30,000, and I set a 15-minute time limit on it. So even if they don't get to $30,000, it shuts off at 15, because they should not be spending more than 15 minutes on it. And, you know, hopefully they get each word 2 or 3 or 4 times. And so this is what it looks like when I send them, when they click on the link that I send them. And then this is a typical word here. So I've given them Laudo and all of my questions. Now, my pet peeve about the GimKits that are already out there, which there are a ton. If you search Cambridge Latin course, forget it. You're going to get all the GimKits you want. If you search stage 29, you're going to get tons of stage 29 kits. My pet peeve is that the kits that have been made, a lot of them, it'll be like Laudo, the word, and then the answer choices will be to praise, and then it'll be like and then it'll be therefore, and then it'll be like cat. and if as long as you realize laudo is a verb, you're going to know it's to praise. So I've been creating my own, and I've been making sure that the parts of speech are all the same for all the answer choices. And the kids like it. They earn money per question, and they can go in and get power-ups, so they can buy like money per question here. So instead of $1, which is level 1, they can, for $10 they can buy this power-up, so that it's $5 a question they get right. And then for, I think it's like $50, they can go to level 3, which is I think $10 a question. And then you can go all the way up, and level 10 is like $5,000 a question or something. And so that's how they get to the 30,000. And you can see you get a spreadsheet of how they do. And my rule for GimKit is, as long as they get 80% or more accurate, it's 100. So like Audrey got 83% of the vocab words accurate on her GimKit, so she got 100 on that GimKit. Derek got 75%, so he gets a 75. But he can take it more than one time. He can take it 10 times if he wants to. And it's just that little incremental daily access to vocabulary that I think has worked really well. I've checked in with my kids a lot about it, and they still say that they like it, and they say that it's really, really helpful when it comes time to reading. In Principiis, they've done that GimKit first, and then we go do the story, and they said it's super, super helpful. So I really like it. The other thing, and again, this is an engagement piece, is you can do a season. So you could do like a whole semester, or I just do it like, I just have the season begin and end each month. So last month was season 2, and it keeps track of all the money that they've earned. So my 10th graders won season 2. Collectively, they earned almost $17 million. Now they have more GimKits than most, and they have more students than the class. So, they should win. I tell them if they don't win, they've really screwed up. But it's fun because I'll put a screen capture just like what you see here, and I'll put it on Microsoft Teams. And then I can also go into each grade level, and I can tell them who came in first, second, third, fourth, fifth, etc. And so they it's just these little tiny things that keep them engaged and keep them motivated. And Gayatri is always at the top. She and Annie, I think, have a little bit of a rivalry going, which is pretty cool. So
we have a question about principal parts. So is it learn them as you go, or can you do those in GimKit, or
Yeah, you get, for principal, you can type in anything you want. I just take the Cambridge Latin course lead. So around, I can't remember when it is, everybody, but stage
13.
Maybe is it 13?
13 you get definitives, and then 21 you get the principal, the perfect,
Yeah.
Perfect passive participle.
Yeah, so I just do whatever Cambridge does. When I do one over the story, I actually just put the word as it appears in the story, and then the blanket definition. So it might say laudo because in the story someone was saying, well, I'm praising this or that, and I'll just put to praise.
That's what you would have done.
Yeah. To me, it just seems simpler. I'm not testing that they understand the principal parts or know the principal parts. I just want them to be able to be familiar with the vocabulary. And again, I'm looking for incremental daily growth. I'm not looking, this is not a summative thing. You know what I mean? So I just want them to access that a little bit at a time and build that vocabulary over the multiple times.
That I would think too, at least this is what I found in my classroom, was that some of these things, as you got them higher up or moving out of Cambridge, if you needed to delve a little deeper or really tighten up something, they're much more invested at that point, rather than preloading, information that they have nothing to do with it for a couple of years in most cases,
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I like to go as long with Cambridge and then say, okay, we might want to have a talk about this now, or at some point in unit 3, 4.
And I think, and that's what I think Cambridge gets right, and I think other curricula get wrong, is that you just keep it simple. So like that Hick in LA, that about the language that you saw that I had a video for, all I said in that video is, hey everybody, this is not complicated. They're 2 vocabulary words. The H words mean this, the ill words mean that. That's it. I mean, that really is it. And we just progress from there. Yeah, there's some weird forms, right? There's Ilias, there's Ili, there's, a million hoax, right? We'll get to that. But this is the beginning. This is about the language. This is introducing it. So for right now, H words are this, ill words are that, and that's pretty much it. And on the video you would see it, but I always talk about, Hick is this guy, right? And I just keep pointing, I just keep saying it over and over and over again. This guy, and it resonates.
What can I?
You just simply treat them as vocabulary words. And the thing
Yeah.
about principal parts, the thing is that the kids don't become better readers by memorizing principal parts. They can't
Right.
connect the dots. If it's all about the storyline and the characters and reading Latin, having them memorize those principal parts, for my students was really a kind of a waste of time, I thought.
Yeah, you memorize them so that you would get them right on a quiz, right?
Exactly.
I mean, that's, yeah, you're right, exactly.
And who?
They take the quiz and then they cannot read any better. They can't recognize them in a passage.
Right.
You get to a point where someone trips over a weird third principal part or something that's unusual. Why is it a crime to say, oh, well, that's the third principal part of such and such? Do we remember what it means? Or that's the perfect. I wouldn't say the third principal part. I say, well, come on, we know this is this verb. But sometimes we feel like if a kid gets to that point where they see something like that and they don't know it, we or they have failed. And I'm not sure I think either one of those is worth any of our energy, because I think the way you're doing it and the way Cambridge does it, it's empowering the kids. Look at this large amount of information you can use, and that one whatever we can give you when you need it, or you can look it up, or most of the time they can figure it out after a while.
Yeah, well, it's like in English, right? Like I've got a fourth grader. I got a 9-year-old son. Love him to death. And the last couple of years, you can see that he's fine tuning some of those irregular vocabulary rules, those irregular grammar rules. Like, I think like a year ago he said catched, right?
Mhm.
And so I just modeled caught for him. Well, the next time he needed to say catch in the past tense, he said caught. And we didn't go into an exegesis about various principal parts in English, right? It's just that was the vocab word, right? That's the thing that you say. And yeah, so there's not really a need to do that in Latin.
So,
Maybe.
listen, it is 8 o'clock. We don't want you to stop. We, as long as you are willing to go on,
Yeah.
I'd like you to finish this up. If people have to leave, they can know that this will be posted on our Facebook page, on Cambridge Latin. Eventually it'll be a YouTube. But if you want to hang out, we're going to keep going.
Yeah, and I do apologize for
No, no problem.
but me being verbose is not unusual. So, my apologies. I do feel like I'm almost done, kind of with what I've organized for us. And so maybe another, 5 minutes or so, but I'll try to wrap it up and I'll stay, as long as everybody has questions. But I did want to shift and just talk about my AP classroom, because it's so different than, Cambridge, the elementary Latin. What I do in the AP classroom is not incredibly creative. Basically, we just the first half of the class, I give the students the time to prepare their translations, and the second half of the class we go over the translation. Now in person, that sounds really monotonous, doesn't it? I mean, it just, and it kind of is, but that's where my personality comes in. That's where the art of teaching takes over, is that I work really hard on making my classroom a great place to be, so that it's not mind numbing. Now, when we get into the middle of Caesar book 5, I mean, there's only so much this guy can do, right? But I try really hard, to make it a really wonderful place to be. But this is basically it. And I give the students, I'll go ahead and show you, I'll give the students this printout of the text where it's 16-point font and it's like triple spaced, and they can write, my rule is that they can write everything but a translation on it. And they've got their book and all of this kind of thing. Now look, if we're at home online, they've got Google, they've got their textbook in front of them, and they've got online translations galore. So I've got to shift a little bit of what I do. The answer, what I've settled on is I really haven't needed to shift very much. The one thing I've done is I have been able to introduce vocabulary in small ways. So I've got in this hyperlink, if we can ever get this PowerPoint to everybody, that hyperlink will take you to the Google Doc where I've got a GIM kit over every single line of the Aeneid, and I'll keep building it as I go on throughout the year. But they start class doing that GIM kit, take 5 minutes or whatever, do the GIM kit, then they do the translation, then we go over it. But the cold calling part was the issue that I really wrestled with. And it took me a while to kind of figure out what to do, because in class I would cold call and we would go boom, 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 boom. And kids had to be on their toes. And there's only 15 people in my AP class. So I'm tearing through that roster every like 3 minutes. Well, you can't do that. It goes back to the same thing I talked about before. You can't do that online. So here's what I figured out. And this is the rubric that I use. I assess their translations on a 1 to 5 scale. And most of the time, almost all the time, they get a 5. And a 5 doesn't mean you got it perfect. It means that you put forth a really honest effort and you did the easy things. Like you're not sitting there going, oh, I don't know what dot means. It's like, come on, dude, you could look that up, right? I gave you 20 minutes. So you've got the tools there, but you don't have to get it perfect. I just need to know that you're making an effort. I had to actually, after several weeks of class, I had to really kind of crack down on kids. Basically just had an online, they had a translation open and they were just, I'd call on them and they'd kind of find where in the translation, they'd read me the translation. So we had to have a little talk and say, guys, I know, I know when you're doing that, and trust me when I tell you, that I'm cheering for you, that I'm rooting for you to get that 5 when I assess you. And that if you don't get a 5, we're going to have a discussion and I'm gonna help you so that the next time I call on you, you will get a 5. So we're in a safe place. I've got your back. The only thing you're doing is hurting your AP score at the end of the year, or hurting your longitudinal gains by looking at a translation. But I've had to publish this, and that seemed to be fine. But I think really the important thing was, I think that they the conversation that we had. But this is what I wanted to show you. This was the difference in cold calling. I printed this out for myself, the same thing that I give my students, and I just randomly assigned a couple kids per line. And what I would do is I would have like line 561 there. I would have Aubrey translate the line, and then I would tell Mina, okay, hey Mina, I don't know, De Missa, in the chat, give me the identification of that form. Or, Woolton, if we want to get crazy, boy, identify what's going on there, right? That accusative of respect with this sort of mediopassive de missa verb, right? So, give me that in the chat. Or if you've got a class that's 25 kids or, more than just that small AP group, I'll put like 3 kids in a line and I'll really have them go nuts. But this way, I've got 2 or 3 kids doing something at exactly the same time. So I'm able to really work through that roster and keep those kids on their toes and really keep them accountable for their learning at a somewhat of a same pace that I was able to do that in person. So that was my big kind of aha moment for AP, and that has worked really, really well. It also makes it very easy for me to grade their papers. With my other classes where translation is the center of what we do, just a couple of other ideas for Latin 4, and I don't do these in AP just because you just don't have time. I mean, you have to tear through that material. But for my Latin 4 class, when I don't have an external factor at the end that I have to serve, and we can take as much time as we want, I've done some really, I think, cool things. And again, none of these are really original. But every time we approach a new story, so we're doing Metamorphoses. So Pyramus and Thisbe, we started last week. So I would record a podcast, and I call it the Yagcast, but I reported like a 15-minute podcast, and they would listen to it, and I just tell them, hey, first day of class, turn on that podcast, have the Latin in front of you, and just read along with me. And it's just me talking about the poem, and it's me reading parts aloud and telling them what I really like about it, and just getting into it. And I don't have a script. It's just me kind of reading a little bit off the cuff, but I'm just trying to communicate my enthusiasm and give them context for what they're reading and just get them excited about the poem. And they say that they like that. The other thing that I have them do almost every single day is I've recorded myself reciting the poem. and they listen to chunks of it, like 30-line chunks, and they go to a survey monkey and they fill out the survey monkey, and it's just two questions. One is what's your name, and the second question is the what you see here. And the only wrong answer is the one that isn't honest. The only wrong answer is the one that just isn't germane to, it doesn't answer the question. And I have to tell you all, I hope that you do this, because it has been one of the most fulfilling parts of my day. Because look at these responses, and some of them are long. I mean, some of them, the kids clearly are just like, yeah, I'm getting the job done here. Okay, one sentence. But some of these are great. And so, someone said, okay, I heard the phrase blah, 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 which means blah, blah, blah. And maybe this foreshadows an event that's going to happen. And I think this phrase translates to this. And, oh, I heard this word, and I think that means that. And just these wonderful, wonderful reactions. And I have them listen to the same chunks of the poem like 2 or 3 times, because I want them to get familiar with the sounds. I want them to get familiar with the vocabulary that they're hearing. And I want them to discover new things on that second and that third listen. And it's been, I just love it. And I'm going to keep doing that. Probably when we're in person, I'm going to keep assigning that for homework. I just love it. Just to round out everybody, just some random things here. Paper rosters. Now look, I'm pulling grades from Edpuzzle, from Pear Deck, from my Agilix Buzz, and from Microsoft Teams. That's 4 different places that I'm getting grades. What do you do? And I think all of us have that experience. So I have printed out paper rosters, just spreadsheets, and it's old school. I mean, it's back to the 80s. You just got a folder, you got a binder, and you're just writing in the scores in those paper rosters. And that has saved me, because for a while, probably took me longer than most, but for a while I just was like, and trying to juggle all these balls in the air, and it was really tough. But I just figured out if I just have this notebook and keep my roster and write down the scores as we go, it really helps keep me sane. I already said 2 screens, and you see me, I'm kind of looking over here sometimes. You got to have those 2 screens. I bought a computer, or a TV screen at like Walmart for like $90. That's enabled with Netflix and all of the other stuff too. So I got a more bang for my buck there. And that 2 screens has been a lifesaver for me. The other thing I want to tell you is, and I started talking, seems like a long time ago now, but I started talking with this, is connect with your students. Don't forget to connect with your parents either. Send them an email. You don't have to send it to every student. Just take 2 seconds out of your day. And even if it's a copy and paste thing, you've got kind of a form email, send it to them. And what I've been sending to parents is, hey, I want you to know your Latin student, Jeff is doing an incredible job. He's working hard. He's doing everything I ask him to do. And I know that that's hard. And I know that is him performing well in my class is the sum total of all of these different moving parts. And I want you to know that I appreciate you too, because I know that you're my TA in that room and you're helping Jeff to do those things. So thank you for doing that. And please let me know if you need anything. Please let me know if you have any questions or whatever. But it is more important than ever to establish and maintain those lines of communications. And I really encourage you to do that. And you'll get paid back tenfold with the notes that you get back from parents, because they need validation too. I don't know how many of you guys have little kids, but holy cow, I'm in. Boy, that's a whole different discussion. My son is, I think, a really good student, but even he, I need to be in that room, or my wife needs to be in that room to make sure that he has help with tech issues, or he's not, staring off into space or whatever. It's just a really challenging situation. Okay.
Before you go, I just want to tell you, Donna says it's not been since the 1980s, way before that. She also
no, I mean,
said,
yeah.
but,
Oh, Donna, I miss you, Donna. I miss you.
And then a lot of people, you said you're basically preaching to the choir on paper grade books,
Yeah. That was a real aha moment for me. It shouldn't have been. It should have been a really easy thing for me, but I just thought, oh my gosh, that would actually really help. So last couple things, as we are doing hybrid teaching, and I'm going to start that adventure on Monday. My game plan, at least until I sink my teeth into it and I really know what's up. Honestly, my game plan is to continue to teach my courses as if they are online. And so put everything online. And the kids in my classroom have a TA, me, have a TA there to help them. But until I've really kind of figured things out, I'm going to crawl before I walk. I know how to teach online because I've worked really hard at it over the last couple months. I'm not going to just trash everything I've learned and try to figure it out as I go. I'm just going to do the online thing, and I'm going to work with the students in front of me, and I'm going to see how it feels, see what the pitfalls are, see what the tips are, see what the tricks are, see what the trouble is, and I'll pivot from there. But my plan is just to go with what I know and support the kids that are in front of me, and support the kids that are online, um, and just work with the situation that I've got there. Whether you're online or whether you're concurrent or hybrid or whatever the word is that you want to use, one thing, if your district, if your school will allow it, is, and this needs to happen because we need to take care of ourselves, and we are working a huge amount of hours. Even like I would hand out a worksheet to my students in class. It would take 30 seconds to take it off the printer and hand it to my kids. Well, it takes me 30 minutes to turn that worksheet into an interactive something online. We are working our tails off, everybody. So take one day a week, or take one day every other week, and make all of your classes completely asynchronous for that day. And then you grade that day, you plan that day, you do all of the things that you need to do, and you do them uninterrupted. And tell your kids that. Tell them, hey, this is my day to really try to make sure the next week is solid, and to get you your grades back and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, go ahead and send me those chats with those questions, or go ahead and write those questions down. But just know I'll get to them at the end of today. We'll talk about them tomorrow. So that would be, I guess, my last little tip there. This has been I've had a lot of fun, everybody. I hope you have learned a lot. You feel free to email me there at Gmail, or connect with me on Twitter, Instagram, and then those Facebook groups are a lifesaver, everybody. So that the Cambridge Latin Course Facebook group, of course, the Teaching Latin Online Facebook group has been fantastic. The Latin Teacher Idea Exchange, those 3 groups have been a lifesaver. So if you're not on there, I encourage you to do that.